Hello guys, my name is Lizzie. For those of you who don't know, welcome back to my channel. I think I have some new friends watching this video from my last video. If you are, I just want to let you know that I'm so thankful that you are here and that you clicked on the video, and I'm just really ecstatic because it's just really exciting. So as you can see from the thumbnail, we are doing one of my favorite videos to film and watch, which is a May wrap-up. I just feel like wrap-up videos are just such a good conclusion to a month and such a satisfying end to a month, because it just shows like the end and then a beginning. So I'm just really excited. I just love filming these videos, and yeah. So I read 10 books this month. So let's just get on with the video. Okay, so the first book that I read this month was Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This is a psychological thriller. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I feel like it was so good. So this is about a girl named Ellie and her mother, and Ellie was found missing, no longer seen, and her mom had to just go on with her life. And then one day she meets a guy who has a daughter who looks just like her daughter Ellie, and that's all I'm gonna say. And if that doesn't make you want to read this book, like, I felt like that was like such a gripping like synopsis. I was like, what? The pacing was just so good. Like, I needed to know what happened. Like, each page, each chapter, I just like needed to know what was going on. The twists in this book were like so unsettling and kind of dark. You kind of need to be in the mood for something that's kind of like uncomfortable and just you know, those kind of things where it's just really unsettling and dark and kind of twisted. And I don't know, I felt like it was like it was a psychological thriller. Like, it was very just sad, honestly. Like, some parts of this book made me want to cry because I felt really bad for a character, and I just thought that it was such a good, solid psychological thriller that I would honestly recommend to anyone who likes twisty, dark thrillers. Like, yeah, so I enjoyed this one. Okay, so the second book I read this month was The Love Wager by Lynn Painter, and I gave this book a 4.25 stars. I honestly loved this book so much. I literally flied through it. It was like cake. Like, I was just eating it up. Like, it was so, the pacing was just so like fast. It's also dual POV, which whenever a book is dual POV, I tend to just go through it quicker and digest it better, because you're just getting different point of views, which keeps you like interested. And this is also fake dating, which is one of my favorite tropes in contemporary romance books. This is her first adult novel, I think. I love her YA novels too. I think I like her YA novels a little bit more, I don't know, because this was actually really good and I really just liked it a lot. I just liked it. It was such a solid contemporary romance. 4.25 stars. I would recommend just as a breath of fresh air if you're in the middle of some serious books or some fantasy books or just something that will make you happy and in a good mood. Like, I really did enjoy this book and I honestly recommend it. Okay, so then we go into the video that I posted last, which was reading 6 fantasy books in 6 days. And that video started out with The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. And this one was like so different to any fantasy that I feel like I've read. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. Like, I really enjoyed this fantasy. It was such a different fantasy to what I'm used to because it has the vampire element, and I really thought that that was really fun and different for someone who has read some fantasy but not a ton. So this was just new and different, and I really enjoyed it. I felt like the plot was so cool. It's kind of like a vampire Hunger Games in a way. Like, it was very just gripping and made you want to like keep wanting to read and know what was going to happen. And I really liked our main girl in this book. I felt like she was so smart and like thought through what she was gonna do instead of just being like the basic dumb MC who just does things because they're not thinking. But this girl was actually really smart, and I appreciate that because I feel like it's more realistic when you're doing things and thinking through them instead of just doing things with no thought. And the ending literally had me in a chokehold. It was such a whirlwind of twists and turns, and it made me really want to get into the next one. So then the next book that I read in that video after that one was Gorges Roses, and this is a novella that comes after Serpent and the Wings of Night. Completely different characters, completely different plot line and story, but I gave this one a 4 stars, which for a novella is like unheard of. Like, I feel like this is the best novella I've ever read. It's such a short book, but this short book is packed with so much like plot line and development in the story and characters. Like, I was like, how do you pack all of that in such a small package? Like, it was just so orchestrated in a way that made it just make sense in your brain, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually such a good novella, and I really want to hear more about these characters, which I think we're going to get more of them in future books, which I'm really excited about because I really like them in this novella. So after I read Gorges Roses, I did immediately want to get into Ashes of the Star-Cursed King, which is the 3rd book in the Nyaxia world or series, but I didn't have it on hand. But what I did have on hand was a book that kind of has taken over the book community, book world. Like, it has completely, like, I'm not even joking when I say I feel like this is the most hyped up book in the whole entire book universe, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Yeah, I did read this book. I did read it. I read it in that video. I gave this book a 4 stars, which is not bad. It's not bad. For a fantasy book to be so hyped up, to only give it a 4 stars, I was kind of disappointed a little bit. This is basically about this girl named Violet who is going to basically a university of dragon riders, basically studying and learning how to be a dragon rider to then find a dragon for you to bond with, and if you do not bond with the dragon, you die. So that's basically the journey that we are taken on in this book. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like so enthralling and so just cool. Like, I was so excited to get into that plotline. And we basically get right into that plotline, right into this book. We, things happen, you go through the trials, like all of this, and then you basically hit the end of that plotline pretty early in the book. I'd say within like 150, 200 pages of this 600-page book, that was already finished and done with. And then after that, it kind of lost me a little bit because I was kind of confused where we were taken with the plot. Like, I was like, okay, I thought that was the main plot, and now we're like over and done with that plot. And then I got kind of bored, which is really annoying. I just got kind of bored because no action was really happening, just a bunch of politics that I wasn't really like, oh, these politics are so good, which sometimes I'm like that with books, which you'll see in like the next series that I start. And I did love Xaden. Like, he was pretty redeeming. Like, he was a pretty good main male MC. Like, come on. But I just felt like I was bored. And it really is annoying to feel like that. This is supposed to have 6 books in the series. And for the romance to have developed so quickly in this book just felt off to me. I felt like the romance should have been developed way longer, maybe into the 2nd book, maybe a more slow burn than what it should have been. I just feel like that's what makes romance fantasy books so good, is when you drag on a romance with all this angst and tension and everything till when it actually happens. Like that's what I love when it comes to fantasy. So when a fantasy book kind of like makes it happen too quickly, then it loses all spark for me, and all of that feeling that I felt towards these characters, it kind of diminishes because it happened too quickly for me to like want for it to happen. Like it, so that's another thing that I was kind of disappointed about. And there were just some things with the dragons. I felt like the people were low-key mean to the dragons and like had an attitude with them, and especially like a character who like they were just so disrespectful to their dragon and just rude and mean. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, you literally have a dragon. Why are you being so hateful and mean towards it? I don't know. I just felt bad about the dragons. These are just things. Okay, I know that I basically just said a lot of things that I didn't like, and I felt like that is not enough for me to give it lower than a 4. I feel like 4 is a very solid, yeah, it was a pretty good book. Do I recommend it? Sure. Another thing, I'm sorry that I keep being negative about this book. Like, I hate being negative about books. I feel like for how hyped it is, it just did not deliver. It did not deliver as I wanted it to deliver. And I am not that kind of person who is so devil's advocate about hyped up books. I mean, ACOTAR is my favorite series. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I love hyped up books. So when I just thought I would love this book. So it's just a little disappointing. Another weird thing is that this, with the dragons, I thought would be set more in a medieval time set, and it was definitely more modern than what I thought it was going to be. So I don't think I would compare it to like Game of Thrones or things like that, which I feel like it would have been way cooler if it was more of in a medieval timeline versus such a modern timeline. They also talk in such modern language and talk. It was just a little weird. But 4 stars nonetheless if you read it. And obviously, like, my opinions are very, like, I'm the minority with this book. Like, this is very widely loved. So you might love this book, and if you do, I'm honestly jealous of you because I want to feel love for this book because it is so loved. Like, I hate not liking a book, but I have to be honest with myself because I can't sit here and say it was amazing and recommend you a book, and if you don't like it because of the reasons I said, like, you know what I mean? I just want to be honest. But you might love this book, which if you do, like, that is so incredible and amazing. So yeah, I'm sorry I spent so much time on this book. I think I just wanted to spend a little extra time on this book because it is so talked about and so hyped about. I feel like I just needed to share like all my thoughts about it. But yeah, so now we start with a series that really just set the catalyst of the rest of the month of May, and that is Throne of Glass. I gave this book a 4 stars. I saw the hype immediately. Like, I was like, okay, like, I am already loving this main MC. Like, she is so strong. Like, I genuinely started this book and I was like, all right, I love it. Like, it was so good. It's really hard to explain these books when you've read to a certain amount because it kind of, this book's storyline is so diluted now because of where you are in the books now. But basically this is about a girl named Selena, and she was a world-known assassin, and she was put in a work camp and then was now hand-plucked after a year in the work camp by the king in this series. She was hand-plucked by him to be put in basically an assassin's Hunger Games to become the king's personal assassin. So you're basically going on this journey with her to be the king's assassin and to train and to go through the competition, and it was very good. I really enjoyed this book when I read it. I really did like it. So yeah, this is Throne of Glass. After I read Throne of Glass, I went straight into Crown of Midnight, which is the book that is directly after, and this one pretty much picks up right where Throne of Glass ends, and it's basically just more development and a build-up story. I gave it 4 stars. I did enjoy this book. You just, like, I could just tell, like, all of this is just a story building, world building, like, not world building, just story building and politics building, and just all of that is happening in this book. So yeah, 4 stars. I then went into The Assassin's Blade, which is actually a prequel, and there's actually controversy about when you are supposed to read this book. I decided to read it after Crown of Midnight. After that, I regretted my decision to read this third. I feel like this would have hit way harder when I read it first. So you either read this before Throne of Glass or after Crown of Midnight, and I decided to do it after Crown of Midnight, but thinking back, I would definitely choose to read this before Throne of Glass because something happens in this book that is already spoiled for you in these. Even though it was already spoiled for me, it still hit so hard and I was still sobbing and crying. Like, it still destroyed me, but I feel like it would have actually, like, taken me to the hospital if I did read this before, which maybe isn't a good thing. So maybe you should read this third. Just depends on what you want. Really, it was fine. Like, it still hit hard. Like, I still enjoyed it. But yeah, Assassin's Blade, 4 stars. Loved. So then after you read those 3 books, you go into Heir of Fire. And this is when the series changes. This is when it hits a point where you're like, oh, okay, got it. It feels like a completely different series. So many POVs are added in this specific book, which I didn't like at first because I was so bored with the POVs in the first half of the book. But then once their stories build up, you then like their POVs in this book, and then after reading Queen of Shadows, and I'm now on the tandem read for Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, I appreciate these POVs now. But when I was reading this alone, I didn't. Like, I got bored. But I gave this book a 4.25 stars, so I did like it more than our 3 previous books. And I saw where it was going. Everyone says when you read this one, like, it's gonna just, like, be amazing and you're just gonna love it, which I did. I liked it, but I'm not as much as I thought I was going to, although you do get introduced to a character in this book, which he's a great character. But yeah, Heir of Fire. Then the last book that I read in May was Queen of Shadows. Oh my gosh. This is when it all clicked for me. When I read this, I immediately was like, it's happening. Like, it's happening. Like, I literally loved this book so much. It was so good. I gave it a 4.75, which is crazy. From a 4.25 to a 4.75, like, I felt like the plot and pacing of this one was so much better. I felt like the storyline was just so much more developed, and you just started getting so many more, like, things happening in this book. Like, you start to get the found family in this book, and it just, everything that you love in a fantasy series happens in this book, and it was just such a great book. And I was like, it's only getting better from here. Like, I know, like, I still enjoyed the books that I read before. Like, honestly, I still enjoyed them. This is when I fell in love with the series. I heard you either fall in love with the series in Heir of Fire or Queen of Shadows. This is when I fell in love. And I mean fell in love, meaning our main MC is literally so incredible. She is so cool. She is so, just so amazing. Like, I literally love her so much. She is just such an amazing character, and the things that happen in this book are so crazy. But yeah, it's so good. Like I said, I am on the tandem read of Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, and that is going, I wouldn't say swimmingly. Alright guys, so these are all the books that I read in this here month of May, and I loved the books I read this month. Like, it was such a fun, stinking month, and I am so excited for the books that I'm reading in June. Like, truly, I'm so excited. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and commenting. I love reading your guys' comments and replying, and it's just such a fulfillment of joy for me to see it growing. It truly is so just incredible to see. I'm so thankful to people who, no matter how many subscribers you have, still want to subscribe, and just, it just makes me happy. It's really a dream come true. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any video ideas that you want me to do, leave them in the comments down below and I'll add them to the list. Like, I'm so happy to just be fed more ideas because I love filming and I love watching. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys again for watching this video, and I really hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you hopefully in my next one. Bye!